I would like to call this special school board meeting of September 26, 2023 to order. The time is 5:05 p.m. The purpose of today's meeting is to hold a public hearing to consider the adoption of the 2023-2024 final millage rates and the 2023-2024 final budget. At this time, I request all cellular telephones be put in the silent mode. I would like to take this opportunity to remind members of the public of the district's mission, which is to ensure each student achieves his or her highest personal potential, and the district's vision to be a world-class school system. Today's agenda includes presentations on the percent of increase over rollback rate, proposed millage, budget overview, and the proposed for the year 2024 final budget, a public hearing on the final budget with public comment, adoption of the required local effort millage, basic discretionary millage, capital outlay millage, resolution determining revenues and millages, and resolution adopting the final millage rates for the fiscal year 2023-2024, and the fiscal year final budget and related resolution adopting the final budget. And they'll be followed by comments from board members, board attorney, and the superintendent. Board members, is there a motion to adopt the agenda as presented? Ms. Jordan.
I move to adopt the agenda as written.
I second. Thank you.
Okay.
Melissa.
The motion was made by Ms. Jordan and seconded by Ms. Giovanelli. Would you please record your vote? The motion carries 7-0. I will now turn the meeting over to Dr. Christopher Benier, our superintendent. Would you like to introduce your speakers?
I'd first like to begin by thanking both Dr. Desamore and Director Letcher for their hard work and effort that they've put in to get us to this point. I'd also like to respectfully acknowledge the board for the work that you've done get us to this point. But at this point, I don't believe there's anything I can add to the discussion that both Dr. Desamore and Director Letcher won't be able to cover on our behalf. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Desamore.
All right. Good evening, Dr. Bernier, members of the board. This hearing is the second of 2 public hearings required under Florida statutes to give the public an opportunity to provide input into the proposed millage levy and the budget for this fiscal year. The superintendent submitted his proposed tentative budget to you on July 24. The tentative hearing was advertised in the news press on Friday, July 28th, and the first public hearing was held on July 31 to discuss and adopt the tentative millage rates and the tentative budget. On Wednesday, August 30th, you received information on the final budget for 2023-24. The second and final budget public hearing being held today was noticed through a direct mailing from the property appraiser's office, and that mail document is known as the Truth in Millage Notice, or the TRIM Notice, and is sent as required by law.
So as outlined in the TRIM requirements, the first thing we have to discuss is the millage rollback rate. The rollback rate is the millage which when applied to the current year's tax roll, net for adjustments for new growth, would produce the same dollars as received in the previous years. The calculated rollback rate is 4.8844, and the current proposed millage rate is 5.30. This represents an 11.17% increase over the rollback rate. As you can see, the new tax roll is at $145 billion. We are recommending the required local effort to be at 3.164. There's a prior period adjustment of 0.018 for a total required local effort of 3.182, with discretionary millage at 0.748. and a capital millage of 1.5 for total millages of 5.430. These total millages are a 0.127 decrease over the 22-23 millage rates. As you can see, the millage rates have been dropping over the years, and in the next slide, what you'll see is as the tax roll goes up, the millage rates decrease. This year's tax roll represents an 8.34% increase over the 2022-23 tax roll. For the average taxpayer, if they have a $100,000 home, last year they would have been paying $555.70 on that home. Their new value would have gone up to $108,340. They would now be paying $588.29, so that'd be a $32.59 increase to a homeowner whose value last year was $100,000. If that homeowner had a homestead exemption and Save Our Homes, the rate would only have gone to $103,000. So last year they would have been paying $416.78, and this year they would pay $423.54. So that homeowner would only see a $6.76 increase. So the millage rates that break down and the amount generated by them, so from our required local effort, it would be 3.182, which will generate $43,197,701. That amount is required for the board to levy in order to participate in the Florida Education Finance Program. The basic discretionary is 0.748 mils, which would generate $104,183,495. And the capital outlay is at 1.5 mils, which would generate $208,924,120 for a total millage of 5.43, which would raise $756,305,316. The final budget that we're proposing is $2,777,112,369, with 44% of that being the general fund at $1.2 billion, and 38% of that being capital at $1 billion. So just so that the public understands, the budget is broken down into different pieces, and they each have specific purposes. The general fund, which is the largest piece, is the main piece of funding that we have, and that is the piece that we use for our everyday operating expenses that pays for district and school expenses. The debt service is payments that are made that we have set aside to make our debt payments on our buildings. The capital is used to build schools, buy equipment, and provide maintenance to our schools. Food service supports the breakfast and lunch program for all students in the district. We have special revenue federal funds that come in for specific purposes. Those are our grant funds. And our internal service funds are our accounts for our insurance costs, our self-insured insurance cost. So as I was saying, our general fund, it's our major source of revenue for the district's daily operations. It is budgeted at $1.2 billion, or 44% of the budget, and it supports over 100,000 students. The focus on that is resources to our classrooms, reading initiatives at the elementary level, and we have continued additional 30 minutes extra at some select elementary and middle schools. Our budget focuses on the whole child, both mental wellness, our English learners, and our students in needs of additional interventions, and recapturing the learning loss from COVID. We are also focused on employee retention in the budget. We spoke before about the Florida Education Finance Program. We just wanted to touch on it again. That is $932 million in revenue that comes in through the FEFP. $42 million of that we are anticipating to go towards our family empowerment scholarships. That is a $77 million increase from the previous year, and $7.5 million increase for the teacher salary allocation. We are getting $8,933 per FTE. The base student allocation is now at $5,139.73, which is a $552.33 increase in the base student allocation, and it is 42% of that is from state funding, the other from our local. Our sources of the operating are 60.92% local, 38.06 state, and 1.02 federal. The dollars that come in, with those, 69% of those go directly to our schools for school expenses and instruction. The next biggest piece is 17%, which goes into our operation and maintenance for maintaining those schools, and 5% into transportation.
The contingency or reserves are those dollar amounts that we set aside to protect the district's financial position. Contingency, according to the state requirements, must represent 3% of your new revenue before you go into additional financial monitoring. And so in our page in the budget book, contingency reserves, you will see a specific line for that, for the 3%. There's also an additional $15.3 million there that is set aside in the event of some future reductions or needs, such as if reductions to the state revenue happen, or prorations, as we have talked about before. Adjustments based on needs at schools, so we do have some funds set aside for schools that may need additional funds, and then also for school voucher increase, or that is those family empowerment scholarships. We have a reserve set aside for that. For food service, that is our fund that is completely self-contained, and it is all of the revenues and expenses that are needed to feed our children breakfast and lunch every day. It is its own self-sustaining fund. The current budget for that is $73.2 million, and we are, again for this year, a community eligibility district. So all schools are eligible for that program in this current fiscal year, meaning that that includes breakfast and lunch for every student at no additional cost to the parents. Our special revenue is really our federal grants, major ones in there being Title I, IDEA, and of course a host of others. The current budget for our federal grants is $141 million, as you'll see in the final budget here. That number will continue to increase as grants are received, applied for and received. We will continue to record those in the budget as appropriate. Capital funds, one of our largest funds in the budget. Current budget for that is about $1 billion, and the major sources of revenue in that capital fund would be our local property taxes, as the millages you are getting set to approve this evening, as well as sales tax. So those are our two major sources of revenue inside of capital funds. The major focus inside of our capital plan for this 5 years, and the 5-year capital plan is also within the book as well as it stands today. Major safety security upgrades, our maintenance renovations of existing schools, technology, as well as the building of new schools. And the current 5-year plan that we have tentatively includes funding for the schools that you see listed here. So we have numerous new schools that either within the 5 years will be completed or started within that 5-year window, and those schools are reflecting the growth that our planning department has worked to develop in terms of the seats that we need to accommodate the growth that we have seen and project to continue to see inside of the district. Debt service is budgeted at $99.1 million at this point. Recall that the money in the debt, or the funds in the debt service budget, really come from a transfer from capital funds. So all of the revenue that you see in debt service is a transfer from capital. So the statutory debt service usage, the state or the statute calls for us not spending any more than 75% of our local property tax dollars for the usage of funding debt. debt service payments, the mortgage, principal, and interest of the district. At this point, we are at 15.2% of that limit. And remember, that is specifically looking at the local property tax source. We do pay some debt out of sales tax as well. That number isn't included within this 15.2% that you see, because the statute specifically calls for the local property tax number and the 75% limitation. And then, of course, the recommended debt service usage, as a board, you all for some time have tried to keep us within a 50% limitation as opposed to a 75% limitation. And looking at that limit, we're at 22.8% of that limit. So well within, at this point, where we want to stay, but we have had discussions about the need to continue to work our capital plan so that we can keep up with the growth that we have, the needs that the district has, without strapping with too much debt for the revenue sources to handle. So in summary then, our school district budget being presented to you today supports all of our schools, 121, over 100,000 students this year, so that is a big benchmark for us in terms of reaching that 100,000 mark this year. Supporting all the initiatives of the state and the district's vision and mission, and the major focus, as we mentioned earlier, really centered around student and staff safety, student achievement, and this district's strategic plan of Envision 2030. So we continue to focus on our mission to ensure that each student reaches his or her highest personal potential. So with that in mind, we being everyone inside of the district, has worked very hard to, at this point, respectfully submit this budget to you in support of our mission, the students and employees of the Lee County School District, and the citizens of Lee County. So we are asking tonight that you adopt all the proposed millages that we've laid out for the 23-24 final budget, that you adopt the final budget for the 23-24 fiscal year, and that you adopt all resolutions related to both millages and budget. And we turn it over to you, Superintendent and Board Chair, for continued conversation and public hearing.
Mr. Chair, I have nothing to add.
Okay. Any questions or anything before we go into the public hearing? The next item on our agenda is the public hearing. We will now recess this special school board meeting and open the public hearing to consider the adoption of the final proposed millage rates and the final budget for the 23-24 year. Dr. Bernier, please continue by stating your recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board, members of the community. The recommendation is that the Lee County School Board adopt the 2023-2024 final proposed required local effort millage of 3.182 mils, with the proposed amount to be raised of $443,197,701. The RLE millage includes basic RLE of 3.164 and a prior period adjustment millage of 0.18. The second recommendation is that the Lee County School Board adopt the 2023-2024 final proposed basic discretionary millage of 0.748 mils with a proposed amount to be raised of $104,183,495. Recommendation number 3, the Lee County School Board adopt the 2023-2024 final proposed capital outlay millage of 1.500 with a proposed amount to be raised of $208,924,120. The total millage will equal 5.43 mils, with the total amount to be raised of $756,305,316. The total millage rate to be levied is more than the rollback rate. It is an increase in the rollback rate of 11.17%. Recommendation number 4, I recommend that the Lee County School Board adopt the resolution determining the revenues and millages levied and the resolution adopting the final millage rates for the fiscal year 2023-2024. The final recommendation, number 5, is I recommend the Lee County School Board adopt the final budget and related resolution adopting the final budget for the 2023-2024 school year as follows. Number 1, general operating in the amount of $1,211,785,645. The special revenue budget in the amount of $214,224,059. The debt service budget in the amount of $99,112,911. The capital outlay budget in the amount of $1,048,945,125. The internal service budget in the amount of $203,044,629. The total final budget would be $2,777,112,369.
Thank you. At this time, the public will be invited to speak on these matters. The time allowed for the comment is 3 minutes per speaker. Is there anyone in the right section that would like to speak? Anyone in the left section? Mr. Daniels? Still, please state your name when you come up.
Robert Daniels, back again. I have in my hand here a public request document that is the salary schedule for every single employee in the district as of, what was it, August 2nd this year. And when I went through the Excel spreadsheet, found a couple interesting numbers. When I took it down to classroom teachers only, it was $266 million in salaries for just classroom teachers, no one else. For all instructional and support staff, it was $426 million. Administrative salaries came out to $400 million for 418 of them. I'm not sure if they were all in here. There were certain names I saw missing on the list that were either intentionally left out or for some reason not included. When I look at the budget with the revenues that are listed, itemized for instruction, there's money there that even at the bargaining with requests made specifically of where is this money going, answers cannot be provided directly and forthwith. And the money, when I look at it with the math, with that $266 million in mind, is more than double that amount that's just out there in the wind. So there's enough money to double the teacher salaries. By what I'm looking at, that's just not accounted for. And when we ask for that money to be accounted for, a circle is danced around that question. Furthermore, it's stated plainly in the budget that the district revenues went up by almost 15%, but expenses only went up by 3.1%. The raises last year for the teachers amounted to just about 0.5% of the budget. Can we make those numbers square for myself and the other thousands of teachers that are batting in, about $55,000 a year before taxes? I did have us funded at $8,300 per student, but the $8,900 is a new number. At those numbers, the first 7 students into each classroom pays for the teacher, complete with benefits. Where's the money from the other 23 students going? As most of us are looking at 30 students in an elementary classroom and at least that many in a high school classroom. Let's see here, some other questions. We previously endorsed a levy, the sales tax. The teachers endorsed that, and I understand that this is not this board. This is an inherited problem, but when we all rallied behind and helped get that levy for the sales tax pushed past the process, and there were few enough votes difference that we can say the teachers made the difference on that one. We were promised raises with the difference in the money. That never happened. We're still waiting for it. Where is that money before we talk about any more money for other things? Thank you.
Are there any other speakers that would like to speak? Come forward. You'll state your name.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Robert Kohler. I'm a history teacher down at Varsity Lakes Middle. Okay, and I see my time has already started. Well, I'm not nearly as well prepared as Mr. Daniels over there, so I'm just going to make this quite brief. Right off the bat, as I am a new teacher, I'm first getting into the system. There is very little support. Simply put, there should be longer training periods. I got maybe a day of observation before being thrown into a classroom, which, for me, personally, in my background, is fine. That being said, I am noticing that there is a woeful teacher shortage, not just in the instructors, but also within all the support staff, the administrative staff. They seem to have almost no time at all to actually answer any of the questions or get much needed resources such as passwords even to log into the district website or the resources that all of you have in fact budgeted for. So simply put, there's a lot of teachers, not just myself, but many who are not here tonight, probably because they're busy doing other things, but many who simply can't access the resources you're already paying for because, quite frankly, they're not being used. Now, I understand that unloading people quickly and then not giving them raises is a strategy that certain businesses use in order to effectively cycle through a pool of workers, but that's not going to work too well for the teachers. I'm also aware that apparently retention bonuses have also been cut. So if you wish to ameliorate the teacher shortage, perhaps a good way to go about doing that would be to, well, A, begin using the resources that you already have, and B, adding in the retention bonuses, anything like that, or in any of that free floating cash that's sitting around, increasing the teacher's salaries. I know it's a cliche that somebody who shows up to a job asks for more money, but the fact of the matter is that, yes, bonuses were only about 0.5%, and, well, quite frankly, I think most people are feeling the sweat of inflation among other issues that are afflicting everybody at the moment. So, I'm going to yield the rest of my time. That's about it. I hope I've went ahead and highlighted those issues for you. Have a good one.
Thank you. Any other speakers? I will now close this public hearing and reconvene the special school board meeting of September 6, 2023. The board will now consider each of the superintendent's recommendations. Dr. Bernier, please restate your recommendation individually, allowing the board the opportunity to vote before moving on to the next one.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, members of the public present, as well as watching, recommendation number 1. I recommend that the Lee County School Board adopt the 2023-2024 final proposed required local effort millage of 3.182 mils with a proposed amount to be raised of $443,197,701. The required local effort millage includes the basic required local effort of 3.164 and a prior period adjustment millage of 0.18.
Board members, you have heard the superintendent's recommendations. Is there a motion to approve? Ms. Jordan?
I move to, motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation for item 1.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Morgan? Moved by Ms. Jordan and seconded by Ms. Morgan. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, if you'll record your vote. Motion carries 7-0. Dr. Bernier, would you please read your recommendation for recommendation 2?
Recommendation number 2. I recommend that the Lee County School Board adopt the 2023-2024 final proposed basic discretionary millage of 0.748 mils with a proposed amount to be raised of $104,183,495.
Board members, you've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Is there a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the superintendent's recommendation and adopt the 2023-2024 final proposed basic discretionary millage of .748 mils.
Is there a second? Ms. Jordan? Any discussion? Seeing none, please record your vote. Motion carries 7-0. Dr. Bernier, would you please read your next recommendation?
Recommendation number 3, I recommend that the Lee County School Board adopt the 2023-2024 final proposed capital outlay millage of 1.500 with a proposed amount to be raised of $208,924,120. The total millage will equal 5.43 mils with a total amount to be raised of $756,305,316. The total millage rate to be levied is more than the rollback rate. It is an increase in the rollback rate of 11.17%.
Board members, you've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Is there a motion to approve? Ms. Jordan?
I move to approve the superintendent's recommendation for item 3, adopting the resolution determining revenues and millage levied.
Is there a second?
I'll second. Morgan.
Moved by Jordan and seconded by Ms. Morgan. Any discussion? Please record your vote. Motion carries 7-0. Dr. Bernier, would you read your next recommendation, please?
Recommendation number 4, I recommend that the Lee County School Board adopt the resolution determining the revenues and the millages levied and the resolution adopting the final millage rates for the fiscal year 2023-2024.
Board members, you've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Is there a motion to approve?
I move we approve the superintendent's recommendation to adopt the resolution determining revenues and millages levied and the resolution adopting the final millage rates for the fiscal year 23-24.
Moved by Ms. Morgan. Is there a second? Ms. Giovanelli?
Yes, I second.
Any discussion? Ms. Jordan?
If I may have clarification, when I made my motion, I actually motioned for this item right here that was just said. So I just wanted clarification on that.
No, because you said 3.
I said 3, but I worded out the rest. So I just want to make sure that that's okay. That there's no...
So, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
just for clarity, after we take this motion, let's go back and make sure we
Yes.
word it properly.
Thank you.
Everybody, any discussion on this one? Please record your vote on recommendation number 4. Motion carries 7-0. We will now revisit motion number 3 for clarification. Dr. Bernier, would you mind rereading the...
Number 3, sir.
Yes.
Recommendation number 3, I recommend that the Lee County School Board adopt the 2023-2024 final proposed capital outlay millage of 1.500 with a proposed amount to be raised of $208,924,120. The total millage will equal 5.43 mils, with the total amount to be raised of $756,305,316. The total millage rate to be levied is more than the rollback rate. It is an increase in the rollback rate of 11.17%.
Okay, Ms. Jordan.
Thank you, and I apologize for that. I wish to approve the superintendent's recommendation that the Lee County School Board adopts the 2023-2024 final proposed capital outlay millage.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. Any discussion? You please do your vote again on recommendation number 3.
I think it's a hand vote.
Mr. Chairman,
Well,
this one will be a
okay.
roll call vote, please.
No problem. Mr. Fisher?
Aye.
Ms. Giovanelli?
Aye.
Ms. Patrica?
Yes, please.
Ms. Jordan?
Aye.
Ms. Langford Fleming?
Aye.
Ms. Morgan?
Aye.
And I am an aye. The motion passes 7-0. Dr. Bernier, would you please read your recommendation for number 5, our final?
Yes, sir. Recommendation number 5, I recommend that the Lee County School Board adopt the final budget and related resolution adopting the final budget for the 23-24 school year as follows. General operating fund in the amount of $1,211,785,645. The special revenue budget in the amount of $214,224,059. The debt service budget in the amount of $99,112,911. The capital outlay budget in the amount of $1,048,945,125. The internal service budget in the amount of $203,044,629. The final total budget, $2,777,112,369.
Board members, you've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Is there a motion to approve?
I move we approve the superintendent's recommendation that we adopt the final budget and related resolution adopting the final budget for the 2023-2024 school year.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Jordan? Any discussion? Seeing none, would you please record your vote? The motion passes 7-0. Next on the agenda are comments from board members, board attorney, and superintendent. Mr. Fisher, do you have any comments this time?
Just real briefly, thank you for the teachers that came here and spoke. I know myself, and I can say this for my fellow board members, we're in the middle of bargaining, so we're not really allowed to discuss any details or anything further at the moment, but I do know that our administration, including Dr. Bernier, is aware that we need to do a better job of paying teachers. We are solid on that, and I want to make sure the public knows that. Thank you.
Mrs. Giovanelli.
I would echo exactly what Mr. Fisher said. We are committed to making sure that our staff is going to be happy. So, and that would be financially as well. Thank you.
Ms. Patrica.
Yeah, so I'll take it a step further. I told you all earlier today, I was at a meeting earlier today for the Benita Estero Association of Realtors, and I told them that the next time a teacher comes to the podium and talks about the difficulty of making ends meet because of their pay, that I would address the teachers and address the board, which I did earlier today. We are all committed to having a discussion about how to increase revenue in order to be able to pay teachers more. When I say teachers, I mean all staff. That includes bus drivers, paras, food service workers, everybody across the board. What I'd like to say, and please don't take this the wrong way, there is no money floating anywhere. I told Bear earlier today, we are not taking piles of money out behind the building and burning it. We are, as a leadership team, I think, more committed than ever to making sure that we're finding every dollar that we can put into staff's pockets. There are limitations. You can look at the budget and you can pull numbers out of the budget and twist them and turn them and make them say what you want them to say. Having the deep understanding of this budget that I have after 7 years of sitting up here, I can tell you that I believe we are doing the best we can given the resources we have coming in right now. I can also look you in the eyes and tell you we as a team are more committed than we have ever been to making sure that teachers are getting everything that we can give to you. So we will continue to work in that direction. That is my commitment, and I have heard that commitment. I mean, we can't talk about what we talk about during executive session because we're in bargaining, but I can tell you, for example, every time anyone raises an issue at a public meeting, the first thing out of Mrs. Langford Fleming's mouth is, how does this impact teachers? I mean, the focus is there. We are doing what we can. We beg your patience, and eventually we may be asking for your support as we go to the public. Those are my comments. Thank you. Oh, wait a minute. One more comment. Thank you to you guys for the work that you did, that you always do, and I always feel significant confidence with you guys at the helm and bringing the information forward to us, answering any questions that we have, the transparency with which you operate. I very much appreciate it. Thank you.
Ms. Jordan.
And I am not going to repeat what my colleagues have stated, but I totally agree with all of them. Thank you.
Ms. Langford Fleming.
As a former teacher of 20 years, I dedicated a lot of years to teaching and to the students of Lee County and some of our neighboring counties. I understand the hours you put in, and those 7 extend far beyond 3:30 in the afternoon. And I know they extend far beyond May 29th. So, I believe Ms. Patrica said it best. I do believe that this board is working as hard as we can to make sure that you, on the 15th and 30th, look down and you see that you are valued, that what you do matters, and that you're impacting lives. And as a former teacher, that can at times be an incredibly thankless job, but also so rewarding here. So I don't really have anything further to say, but, and like you stated earlier, we can't really talk about the things we talk about in bargaining, but I just want you to know that this board is working very hard at the resources we've been given to make sure that you feel that way while you're serving the children of Lee County.
Ms. Morgan.
And I will simply say that I share my colleagues' sentiments. Thank you all.
What is the word they used to use? Ditto? They always use, we hear you. Mrs. DePrey-Bruno, do you have anything to add?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Time? Dr. Bernier?
I just want to weigh in and reiterate the commitment to all of our employees that this board has shown. We will continue to work through the bargaining process for all of our employees, and for those that don't have particular unions, we are assured them as well that we will continue to provide to those individuals who do some of the additional work that all of us do to help allow our children to be successful, that those people will be, as best we can within a budget which has to be balanced by state law, provide them as much money as we can. I am asking staff, based upon some numbers read into the record this evening, to rework information that we talked about back in June, where we provided the board with an update regarding each one of the categories of our employees, how many numbers were in each category, salary dollars, and then the percentage of the entire budget. I just want to make sure those numbers haven't radically changed because of the numbers that we provided in the time in June were different from the ones read into the record today. And I'm not questioning the numbers, I just want to make sure that I have the right numbers, and I'm asking members of the staff via email in just a few minutes to make sure that I have an update for all of you, same chart, same calculations, to make sure you have a cost comparison to what we told you in June and where we are in August of this year.
Thank you. Seeing no other business coming before this meeting, before I adjourn, our next meeting will start in approximately 10 minutes. This meeting is adjourned. The time is 5:50.